I always thought that winter at Greenridge University was something no one should experience alone. It was cold in a way that didn't just bite into your skin, but seemed to seep into every empty crevice in your heart. In my sophomore year, Connor Hayes, was still living in that limbo, quiet and detached, eyes glued to books, avoiding unnecessary conversations. It sounds funny, but I always thought my youth was painted in shades of grayish blue. Not too dark, but not bright enough either. That afternoon, the cold wind whipped through the bare trees on campus. I'd just left my sociology class, holding a hot cup of coffee, but the chill still ran down my spine. Each step on the brick path echoed with a clack-clack, a familiar sound that made me feel like a background character in a movie no one paid attention to. And then, he appeared, stepping right into the frame. A strong gust blew through, scattering the papers in someone's hands ahead of me into the air. The person quickly bent down to chase after them, but the wind kept swirling, as if teasing him on purpose. I didn't plan to stop. I really didn't, until he looked up. His eyes met mine. Pale green, clear and bright like a late December morning with weak sunlight. I froze for just a breath, then stepped forward to pick up a sheet that had landed on the sidewalk. "Thanks, man. The wind today is really out to fight me." He laughed, his American voice deep and warm with a slight rasp. The kind of voice that sounded like it belonged to someone who smiled often in cold weather. "I see that," I replied, handing the stack back to him. "Lucas, right? I saw you in class last week." "Yeah, Lucas Evans." He extended his hand, his smile making his eyes crinkle slightly. "And you're Connor, aren't you? I remember your green hoodie." I laughed unexpectedly. "You noticed. I've got good eyes." Lucas shrugged, as if it was no big deal. Actually, that line made my heart skip a beat. We both started walking in the same direction toward the library. Actually, he said he was heading to the dorms, and I just slowed my pace to have an excuse to talk a bit more. The wind was still cold, but for some reason, I felt less hunched over. Lucas asked me simple questions: what I was majoring in, what clubs I was in, if I always drank black coffee like an old man. I answered them all, and I realized I'd never talked this much to a stranger before. He walked beside me, hands deep in his coat pockets, his breath forming small puffs of steam. From the side, Lucas had something very warm about him. Not just surface-level warm, but like a shelter on biting windy days. When we neared North Hall dorms, Lucas slowed down and turned to me. "Hey Connor, do you ever go for evening walks?" "Depends on the day," I replied, a bit hesitant. It was hard to tell if he was asking casually or for another reason. "So tonight, around 7, want to walk with me? I'm not familiar with the north side paths, and going alone feels a bit lonely." I paused for a beat. My heart beat strangely fast. I wasn't used to that feeling. For years, I'd kept my distance, kept everything in a safe zone. But right then, in the cold, standing before someone with an unbelievably warm smile, I heard my answer slip out. "Sure, I'll go." Lucas smiled, the kind that made the hair on his forehead flutter lightly in the wind. "Great, I'll text you." I nodded, then watched him walk into the dorms. Part of me wanted to turn away immediately to stay composed. But the bigger part just wanted to stand there watching that gray coat disappear behind the glowing glass doors. The afternoon sky grew colder, but inexplicably, I felt warm in my chest. Just from a chance encounter? Just from a few simple words in the cold wind? Maybe. Or maybe because of something else I wasn't ready to name yet. That evening, as 7 o'clock approached, I saw Lucas's message pop up on my screen. "I'm at the courtyard behind North Hall. Bring gloves, it's freezing." I read the message 3 times, then smiled, a smile I rarely had. I threw on my coat, wrapped my scarf, and stepped outside, where the cold was waiting, along with someone who made my heart feel warm in a way I couldn't explain. Some winter evenings, the golden lights from the dorms made everything look like a living painting, cold, silent, but with something warm flowing beneath the surface. That night was like that for me. When I reached the courtyard behind North Hall, Lucas was already there, leaning against the wooden railing by the frost-covered lawn. He was blowing into his hands, a gesture that looked both silly and inexplicably cute. When he saw me, he looked up immediately. "Hey, Connor." His voice lit up as if just seeing me warmed half the weather away. "Did you bring gloves?" "I did." I held up my gloved hand, and Lucas nodded approvingly. "Good, because I swear, tonight's cold enough to freeze your brain." I laughed, and we started walking along the brick path leading to the small lake behind the school, the place where students sprawled out to read in summer, but hardly anyone ventured in winter. No snow yet, but the wind whipped against our skin enough to numb my ears. "Do you really go for walks like this often?" Lucas asked, eyes ahead. "Not really. I do when my mind feels heavy." "So tonight, is your mind heavy?" I glanced at him. "No. I'm here because you invited me." Lucas smiled. That smile where his eyes squinted a bit, like he couldn't hide his joy. Weird. Someone I just talked to that afternoon could feel this close. He zipped his coat higher. "I just moved dorms last week. Everything feels new. I don't know many people yet. Saw you in class the other day. I figured you weren't the loud type." "I'm not loud, yeah. Yeah. But you make me feel easy to talk to." Lucas kicked a pebble on the path. "You have this vibe. Like safety." I paused for a moment. Safety. That word was rarely used for me. But coming from Lucas, it warmed my chest in an inexplicable way. "What about you?" I asked. "My first impression of you was a bit messy." I was joking, referring to the flying papers. Lucas burst out laughing, leaning a bit. "Okay, fair enough. But I'm selectively messy." We kept walking, our feet crunching on the gravel. The night sky was dark, but the streetlights reflected in Lucas's eyes, making them look both distant and very close. "Connor," Lucas said after a few minutes of silence, "are you cold?" "A little." "Want to slow down? The wind ahead is strong." "Are you cold?" He shrugged. "I'm fine." "I'm asking because your face is red like an apple." I touched my cheek. It was indeed burning, but I wasn't sure if it was from the cold or something else spreading through me while walking beside Lucas. We reached the lake. The water was black and flat like glass, reflecting the faint moon. Lucas stopped, leaning on the wooden railing. I stood beside him. "It's beautiful," Lucas said softly. "Yeah. Do you come here often, Connor?" "Not much. Alone. This place feels a bit sad." "Yeah." Lucas turned to me. "But with two people it's not sad, right?" That question froze me for a few seconds. Because it was true. It wasn't sad at all. For the first time in a long while, I felt someone beside me without needing to build walls for protection. The wind suddenly blew hard. Lucas's brown hair tousled. He laughed, running a hand through it. "My hair looks awful, doesn't it?" "Awful in a good way," I replied. "It suits you." Lucas looked at me, longer than usual. That gaze was enough to make my heart skip. Then he cleared his throat and turned back to the lake. "Connor," Lucas said slowly, "this might sound weird, but do you always kind of avoid people? In class, when someone talks to you, I see you pull back a bit." The question cut straight to something I rarely admitted. "I'm just not good at connecting," I confessed. "It's hard. And I'm afraid of bothering people." "You're not bothering me. You just met me." "True. But I still know you're not." He said it lightly, but each word landed on me with clarity. I looked at Lucas, and this time he looked back. We stood under the golden lights, wind rustling the branches overhead, and time seemed to slow noticeably. "Connor," Lucas said slowly, "I like this feeling." "What feeling?" "The feeling of having someone walk beside me without feeling cold." I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened slightly. Lucas turned away, maybe afraid he'd said too much. A moment later, he laughed, light as a breath. "You know, I think meeting you on that crazy windy day was lucky." I looked at the lake water. "I think so too." We fell silent, but it was the kind of silence that steadied my heart. Not lonely. The wind was still cold, but the feeling in my chest was no longer biting. That night, as we headed back to the dorms, Lucas stopped before we parted ways. "Connor, Are you free tomorrow? Maybe. Why? Because I want to see you again. He said it so sincerely, no joking. And I, the one who always hesitated, replied immediately, I want to too. Lucas smiled. That smile was enough to linger with me all night. And maybe more than that. I don't know if it was because last night was so full of emotions, but the next morning I woke up earlier than usual. The winter sunlight filtered through my dorm window, casting a pale golden hue over everything, gentle but cold. I sat on the bed for a while, staring at my phone, waiting for a notification I wasn't ready to admit I was hoping for. But Lucas texted for real. Morning, Connor. You up? I'm having coffee at the cafe by the library. If you're not busy, I want to see you. I looked at the message, my heart warming just like last night. I changed, wrapped my scarf, and hurried out. The morning cold was different from nighttime. It stung the face sharper, but I didn't mind. Maybe because I was thinking about the person waiting for me. The small cafe by the library was always crowded in the mornings. But when I walked in, amid dozens of students bundled in thick coats, I spotted Lucas right away. He was by the window, hair slightly messy, gray hoodie, and a mocha in front of him. When he saw me, he raised an eyebrow in that pleased but trying to play it cool way. I figured you'd come, Lucas said as I sat down. I figured you'd text. We looked at each other for a few seconds, then both laughed. A light, warm laugh. I ordered you a latte, Lucas said. You said yesterday you like it less bitter, right? My heart slowed a beat. He noticed? Yeah, I replied softly. Thanks. Lucas propped his chin, eyes on me with full attention. Connor, I don't know if you believe me, but from yesterday to this morning, I've thought about you more than usual. The words made me look down at the table to hide my flushing face. Me, too, I admitted, voice low enough for only him to hear. Lucas tilted his head, his pale green eyes shining with an indescribable warmth. You make me feel easy to breathe. I didn't think I could do that much. Maybe you just don't see it. Lucas smiled. But I do. A comfortable silence enveloped us. Outside the window, groups of students passed by, occasionally the crunch of dry snow under feet. But amid the noisy space, Lucas and I had our own zone. Not too big, but warm enough. Lucas broke the silence first. Connor, do you have class this afternoon? No. I'm free. So want to go somewhere with me? I know another lake, a bit off campus. Fewer people. Quieter. I looked at Lucas, and I knew my answer clearly. I'll go. A smile bloomed on his lips, clear enough to warm my heart again. That afternoon, the sky was overcast but no strong wind. We walked through the small forest east of campus, where dry leaves covered the ground, crunching with each step. Lucas walked beside me, occasionally kicking leaves, looking both childish and adorable. Connor, Lucas said, eyes up at the bare branches. Do you confide in anyone often? Me? I thought for a moment. Not much. I have a few friends, but I'm not good at opening up. Lucas hummed in understanding. Me too. Really? You seem like the type who makes friends easily. Easy to talk doesn't mean easy to open up. Lucas kicked a rock into the bushes. I smile a lot, talk a lot, but most of the time, I don't say the important stuff. Why? Lucas shrugged. Afraid people won't understand, or won't care. He said it lightly, but I heard a hint of weariness in his voice. But yesterday, Lucas continued, walking with you, I felt like I didn't have to try. Me too. Lucas turned and our eyes met. In that moment, something vibrated, small, fragile, but real. We kept going until the lake appeared beyond the trees. The water was calmer than the campus lake, and the surroundings were so quiet you could hear the light wind through the branches. We sat on a large rock by the shore. I like this place, Lucas said. I come here when I need to think. What do you think about? The future. And things I don't tell anyone. I looked at the lake, then at him. You can tell me. Lucas seemed a bit surprised but didn't avoid my gaze. Connor, he said slowly. You make me want to be honest. The wind blew through, cold but not enough to distract me. Lucas leaned back on his hands, face to the sky, breath forming white puffs. I like winter, he said, but winter makes me feel the loneliest too. I don't know why that squeezed my heart. I don't want you to be lonely, I blurted. Lucas turned, and this time he looked at me completely differently. No te asing, no joking, no avoiding. In a real way. Connor, I think I'm starting to like you, Lucas said, voice very soft but clear. Not the casual kind, the real kind. My chest filled with a feeling so strong I had to breathe deep. How long had I waited for someone to say that to me? And why Lucas? Someone who'd only entered my life less than 2 days ago. But I knew one thing for sure. I like you too, I said. My voice trembled. But no regrets. More than I thought. Lucas smiled. Not big, not showy, just a smile I felt deep in my chest. He moved closer, his shoulder touching mine. We sat like that, saying nothing more, but the world seemed enough. Winter was still cold, but beside Lucas, for the first time I didn't feel the need to shiver. That evening, when I got back to my room, the feeling in my chest surged like waves. I lay on the bed, staring at the pale white ceiling, trying to sort out what had happened. But the more I tried, the harder my heart pounded. Lucas likes me, and I like him. No hesitation, no usual self-denial, no fear of misunderstanding. Everything happened simply and clearly enough that I wondered if I was dreaming. I turned on my phone. A message from Lucas was right there. You home yet? I smiled. Yeah. Just seconds later. Are you cold? I shook my head, smiling bigger unconsciously. No. I'm feeling warm. A long pause with no new message. I started wondering when my phone buzzed. Connor, I'm feeling warm too. I placed the phone on my chest, sighing a long breath that made my whole body feel lighter. That warmth spread, seeping into every empty space in me. Spaces I'd held onto for so long. I thought there was no room left for anyone to enter. But Lucas had entered, and he knocked so gently. The next morning, I met Lucas in the courtyard in front of the library. He was leaning against the stone railing, hands in pockets, looking at me with an expression that couldn't hide his joy. Morning. Lucas tilted his head. Hi, I replied, trying to act calm but probably failing completely. He stepped closer, close enough that I felt his breath in the biting cold. Connor, free tonight? I think so, I said, trying not to let my voice shake. Lucas smiled, eyes crinkling. I want to take you somewhere. Not far. I think you'll like it. Where? Secret, Lucas said, then stepped half a pace closer. If you trust me. I looked into his eyes, pale green but deep, like they held something beyond what he showed the world. I trust you. Lucas swallowed lightly, as if those words touched him more than I thought. Good. So tonight, meet me in front of the library. Say zoklok. Okay. He stood there a few more seconds, like he didn't want to leave. Then Lucas raised his hand, about to touch mine but pausing midair. Is it okay if... He lowered his voice. If I hug you? The question made my heart stop for a beat. We were in a place with people passing by. Students walking, talking, laughing. And amid all that, Lucas asked something that made me want to melt into his warmth. Yes, I replied. It's okay. Lucas stepped forward, wrapping his arms around my shoulders, pulling me into his chest. His scent, light pine and a hint of mint, made me almost forget the cold world outside. He hugged tight, but not too much, just enough for me to know he really wanted me there. I closed my eyes for a moment. His heart beat near my chest. His warmth spread to me. In that instant, all the campus noise faded. Thanks, Lucas whispered. Why thanks? For letting me hug you, he said, still holding me. I've wanted to since yesterday. I laughed lightly into his shoulder. You can hug anytime you want. Lucas pulled back a bit, just enough to look at my face. You better be careful, he said, half joking, half serious. I'll hug a lot. The evening came faster than I expected. I waited for Lucas in front of the library, streetlights on, reflecting warm gold on the thin snow that had fallen since afternoon. I pulled my scarf higher, but my heart was so hot I didn't feel cold anymore. Lucas arrived a minute after me. He wore a black beanie, nose slightly red from the wind, and on his lips was a smile that softened the whole winter sky. "Ready?" Lucas asked. "Yeah." He held out his hand, not like a handshake. Like, he wanted me to hold it. I looked at that hand for a second, then placed mine in it. Lucas's fingers were cold at the tips, but his palm was warm. When we interlaced, he squeezed lightly, just a bit, like asking, "Are you really okay with this?" And my hand squeezed back, answering without words. Lucas led me down the small path behind the library, then across a quiet courtyard. The wind blew stronger, but he didn't let go of my hand. Instead, he held tighter. "Are you cold?" I asked. "I am," Lucas replied, "but I'm holding your hand, so I'm fine." I smiled, really smiled, not the forced social kind. With Lucas, everything felt natural. No awkward silences. No feeling of holding back what I wanted to say. He led me to the end of the path. There was a small arched wooden bridge over a stream, something I'd never noticed existed. But as we stepped onto the bridge, I understood why Lucas chose this place. The forest ahead was strung with small golden string lights, stretching along the path, twinkling like a gateway to another world. The light reflected on the snow, making the whole forest glow like in a fairy tale. My mouth opened slightly in surprise. "Lucas, it's beautiful. I figured you'd like it," he said, looking at me instead of the scene. "I wanted to show you something warm." I turned to him. Lucas's eyes reflected the lights, the winter, and something growing between us. "Connor," he said softly, "you make me feel like I'm not alone anymore." I let out a long breath, one I didn't know I'd been holding. "You make me feel that too." Lucas squeezed my hand. Almost no wind, no noisy students, no familiar fares. Just me and Lucas, in the golden-lit forest, amid the cold biting at our skin, but never reaching my heart anymore, because it was warm, very warm, warm enough that I didn't want to leave this moment, ever.